All right, we're back. We're live. What's up, party people? My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. We've got an interesting one. First interview for the day. I've got Brandon coming on the show. He is someone who left his job in commercial banking after 20 years to run a Bitcoin company. He runs Sovreign, which is essentially the geek squad for Bitcoin exchanges. He's a CEO. It's a premium Bitcoin consulting and advisory firm helping businesses and individuals understand and adopt Bitcoin. So help me bring on Brandon. Hey, Brandon, how's it going, man?
Hey, Sonny, thanks for having me on here. I appreciate taking the time.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. So I guess in your words, do you want to tell me a little bit about Sovereign? We'll keep it short for now, but yeah, I'll get back into it maybe in the end, near the last third of the interview. But yeah, just kick us off there, and then happy to dive deeper.
Yeah, just the abridged version is I joined as CEO in March of last year, and we had this idea that we were going to be sort of the exclusive the exclusive Bitcoin consulting firm interacting with businesses, helping to educate them about Bitcoin, onboard them to Bitcoin, and then ultimately deploy Bitcoin into their business operations. And that all sounded well and good and was exciting, and we were all on the same mission. But eventually, we found more and more the requests for our company were just simply individuals who happen to be business owners or high net worth individuals who had businesses in their family office or things like that. That just wanted help getting better Bitcoin setups on the hardware and software side. And so we still do work with business owners, and we are helping businesses integrate Bitcoin into their businesses to accept payments, to remit payments, to store it as a treasury asset. And we still do that, but we're just finding more and more that the majority of our business is coming from individuals who want help with their Bitcoin stack and have been sort of transitioning the framing of the business and our service packages to individuals, smaller packages for more customers, more individuals, as opposed to bigger packages for institutions or companies. And that seems to be where we're getting the most traction and what people are demanding from us. So we're reacting to the market in real time. And so the company's kind of morphed from a sort of institutional corporate type consulting firm to a individual professional services firm.
I love it. I love it. Well, Bitcoin, oh man, it's definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite topic. So
It's the best.
it's the best. One of my favorite things about Bitcoin is the people, because like without us, it'd be kind of not really that great, right? So I love capturing people's like stories around where they started and how they arrived here, right? With regard to Bitcoin specifically. So you spent most of your career in distressed assets and turnarounds. What does that work actually teach you that a normal kind of like operating role never would?
So, one thing I learned, first of all, negotiating and dealing with people, when you're in a situation where both sides immediately start off disliking each other, yet need to come to an agreement where both parties, we always joke, a good compromise is when everyone walks away unhappy, and finding that balance and being able to relate to someone else. What are their pain points? Why are they struggling? How do you get them? How do you get to a point where you trust each other? You're not going to like working together, but at least you're working towards a an end goal where that both parties will maximize what's best for them. And learning those people skills, was an incredible lesson in life that you will never get anywhere else, because you're not going to walk around in your life and enter immediately into hostile animus situations with people you're interacting with every day and then having to make that work. So that was an incredible skill. And the other thing I will say is that you really understand the guts of the business. You understand every single thing. You're not just in an operations department, you're not just in billing, you're not just in finance, you're not just in the C suite. You have to know how every single part of the business functions, how that ties into the rest of the business, and then figuring out a plan to start trying to work on those things to make the company become profitable again, or be in a position to sell to maximize value. Or sometimes, unfortunately, it's just too far gone and you have to make the unfortunate decision to enter a liquidation or a bankruptcy. But you understand every single part of the business at its core, and each individual disparate part, as opposed to it becoming a whole, as opposed to just one specific niche that you might excel in other jobs.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So when you were deep in fixing broken businesses, what was the first moment Bitcoin showed up on your radar as, more than just a headline?
I would say in 2018, after that big run up in 2017, I had heard about Bitcoin before and heard it through some friends, and had some poker connections as well, and just never really got into it. And then I saw it go up to 20K in 2017, and I'm just conservative and slow by nature. And so I was like, wow, that's exciting. There was all this stuff about it was about to come on the board of trade. I worked right next to the board of trade. And so I was like, I should probably learn a little bit more about this. And funny enough, um, that wick up in 2017 was so fast that it had like wicked back down in 2018 when I started looking into this. And I started really, the scarcity thing hit me right away. The 21 million, I traded baseball cards as a kid. I understood the value of gold because of its scarcity compared to the monetary. So I kind of understood these concepts already. And then when I thought of the fact that businesses were constantly having to take on more debt, and then a lot of times I would get involved where they would just try to borrow their way out of problems, and that just created more problems. And it was really because they were having their margins erode, and they were having to raise prices. And then there's only so much you can raise prices until you start losing customers. Even with inflated money, there's just a psychological element where people say, I'm not going to pay for that anymore. And watching that happen in real time, I started socializing with other people, talking with other people about, hey, have you heard about Bitcoin? Do you know about Bitcoin? And just kind of putting these ideas out there. Additionally, as I was working in this position, I was finding that there are so many zombie companies out there that are just being propped up by debt that literally they shouldn't exist. Like, they are plugging cash flow holes, unprofitable holes, with debt. And at the time in 2018, 2019, it was before the rate hikes, that it was basically free. I mean, these people were borrowing at 3%, three and a quarter. I remember we were doing LIBOR plus 225. This was pre-SOFR, and LIBOR was like 0.27. It was like 27 basis point. I mean, these people were like paying sub 3% rates to borrow money. And that was basically the only way they were propping the business up. And then sure enough, they raised rates. And in my opinion, probably half the businesses in the United States should have failed. But then they got PPE and all this money printing and handouts and all these other programs that came in to sort of backstop the full default liquidation cascade that should have taken place when that happened. But I just began seeing that in real time and realizing that, hey, there's a way for these businesses that, if they have a long term, a 5 to 10 year time horizon of putting some of their treasury into Bitcoin to insulate them from this problem, that they can save their business in the long term. Now, it's not a short term remediation. You're not going to save your business in 3 months. You're not going to watch some green candle go up, sell out of your position, and then load your balance sheet up with cash. Like, that's not it. But if you're willing to take a portion of your balance sheet and allocate it to Bitcoin, then you have the potential to have longevity with your business, pass it down to future generations. And that's kind of when it all sort of clicked into one picture for me. And then I really didn't start acting on it, start doing anything until sort of 2022. I tried to socialize it within the organization I was working for, and tried to bring it up to people. And then FTX happened, and it all kind of just blew up at once. And then it wasn't until 2 to 3 years later that I really decided, okay, I want to go try to help businesses understand this, and I'm not going to be able to do it in this environment. I need to go find a place I can do this, and that's when I found Sovreign at the time, and came on as CEO.
And what's the through line between turning around distressed companies and helping a business adopt Bitcoin? Like where do those two skill sets overlap? Can you kind of like go a bit further than that?
Yeah, so a big part of turnaround restructuring is diagnosing problems and figuring out what is impeding a business from success, what are their pain points. And a big part of communicating the need for Bitcoin for businesses to survive into the future is explaining to them that they have a pain. Every business has the pain point of inflation, except for commercial banking, ironically. But every actual business where they're producing things and selling things, or even a professional services firm, a law firm, anything, you have inflationary pressures on you. I remember when I started in 2008 doing specifically distressed work, and I to 2025 when I left, the rates of the hourly rates of the attorneys I was working with doubled. And so they kept having to raise their prices because their costs kept going up. So it didn't really matter what business or industry you were in. Every company was facing inflationary pressure. And it's like, well, what if there was, and these firms some of these firms have been around for 100 plus years. These are old school Chicago law firms that have been there forever. A lot of these businesses, it's third generation. Their great grandparents founded it. It's been passed down through the family. And it's like, imagine if your previous generations could have insulated you from this massive inflation problem. Imagine if they had a tool like Bitcoin in 1954 and in 1975 and 1995. Like, imagine what you could do to this family business to insulate your heirs, the people you're passing this company down, or even the next ownership group, to put some of this Bitcoin on the balance sheet and to look back 10 years from now and go, oh my gosh, we really protected ourselves. We can stomach not having to raise our prices so much, not having to compromise on quality so much. And explaining that to business owners, that value proposition is something that good and actual business owners that care about their business really do care about. They do want to see um, what they've built or what they've inherited and continue to build upon. They do want to see it continue into the future, and it's part of their legacy. It's part of what they leave behind. And explaining to them that you're going to have a much higher probability of leaving this business behind if you can adopt something like Bitcoin now, and look back 10 years from now and say, wow, that was a really good decision.
A lot of people quit fiat corporate life and kind of like romanticize it. What did you actually have to give up, and what did you not expect to gain?
Yeah, I hear it. You're exactly right. People are like, "Oh, I'm going to quit my fiat job. I'm going to go work in Bitcoin." And I think a lot of people do that, and then they end up unhappy. It's because you're not doing what you love, and it doesn't really matter. Excuse me, if you're doing it for a Bitcoin company or some nameless, faceless corporation. Like, if you're doing work you don't like, you're going to be miserable. And just because you're doing it under the Bitcoin flag as opposed to the company de jure flag, it you're not going to feel satisfied. And it's hard. Like, when you leave the fiat world, I left a very nice paycheck, a very nice benefits package, all sorts of stock options and everything. I left that all behind. And I did it because I did, thankfully, to Bitcoin. I did have some savings and some capital that I could rely on while I went to go try to build something and do something I wanted to. But it's really, really hard. And especially I left, and we were expecting this big bull market. We were going to 400K, and everyone's going to be asking about Bitcoin. And oh my gosh, the services, the phone calls are going to be pouring in. People are going to need help with this. And we got this just kind of lame, stupid bull market, and people are buying ETFs and digital asset treasury company stock and preferreds. I mean, it was like a total joke. It was like a total flop, embarrassment, like really like a black eye on the Bitcoin space, in my opinion. The amount of burned capital of people who could have just told to go buy Bitcoin instead of some stupid stock where they have to pay seven-figure salaries and operating expenses and all this other stuff. And I think it really put a cap on things. And then we got this brutal bear market where, yeah, the drawdown isn't from a percentage point isn't that great, but everyone was promised, riches and big titty bitches, and they're like angry they didn't get their thing. It was a lot of high time preference people were promised a lot of stuff, and now they're all angry and pissed off because Bitcoin's not doing what they want it to do. And I have to live through all of that, running a business and trying to find a market that accepts us, what our actual fit is in the market, who are we here to help. And it's really, really difficult. There's no guarantees, there's no safety net, there's no security. And um, you walk away from a lot. And there is something to be said, like, yeah, okay, maybe you don't like going into your 9 to 5 corporate job and doing the commute, but like you're sitting in air conditioning all day. If we're being honest, how hard are you really working? Like, you're not doing that much. Like, I'm doing way more now than I was then. And it's like, you're not just going to have some sort of retirement party where you're like working part-time on the side with a Bitcoin company because, you saved all this Bitcoin. Like, that's, if you want to go retire, go retire. But like, this isn't some sort of, ancillary activity that you just kind of dip your toe in, hope things work out, whatever. I'm not going to take this that seriously. Like, I have a family, I have a wife, I have kids, like, or I have a kid and another on the way. And we're moving, we're buying a bigger house. It's like there's things in life that need to get taken care of. And there is absolutely no guarantee that that's going to be the case when you leave a nice steady paycheck and good employment and a place where I was really respected. People were shocked that I left. They There were some other things going on behind the scenes that other people didn't know about, but for the most part, it was there were a lot of people that were really hurt, that did a lot for me in my career. And so you're going to hurt people, you're going to upset people, and people can talk about their evil corporate overlords and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, 90% of the people I worked with were just great people. They were just ignorant about how money worked, or didn't really know. They're just raising their families. They're just there to help pay the bills. And um, that's kind of the benefits, is you get to be around people who are generally good people. And yes, they may be clueless about a lot of stuff, but it's really not some, you're not in a Russian gulag at the end of the day. Like, yes, it's bad. Yes, you have to do some stuff you don't want to do. You don't have complete sovereignty and autonomy over your life. That's all true. But you're not being starved to death. You're not freezing at night and all this other stuff. So there are trade-offs, and there's not some you're not going to walk out of your corporate job into the Bitcoin world and be like, oh, I found Valhalla. This is the greatest thing I've ever done. Like, that's just not going to happen. And I think a lot of people have an illusion that that is what's going to happen. That, oh, I found my thing. I'm doing what I liken it to. A lot of people go into the missionary field in Christianity, and they think like, oh, I love God so much. I have such a deep relationship with Jesus. My family all loves Christ. What better thing could it be than to go serve him, internationally or nationally? And it's like they leave and they're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. This is hard. I don't know what I signed up for, or I'm not even ready for this. Like, this isn't the greatest thing, like maybe just worshiping God and having, the life I had before was good enough for me. And so it's funny, growing up in the church in a Christian household, I see a lot of similarities between, missionaries who thought they wanted to go be missionaries, and, Bitcoiners who thought they wanted to go work in Bitcoin, and wake up the next day and they're like, wow, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of that resonates a lot. So, was there like a single conversation or deal where you realized, businesses, I guess, and now more so individuals don't have kind of a Bitcoin knowledge problem. They have more an adoption and trust problem?
It was just as we were going out to the market and talking to business owners, we did a lot of, we hired a sales, or we brought on a sales team, and just talking to business owners. And it was like, they just, and I know a lot of people have written stuff. Gigi just wrote, or not just wrote, it was a few years ago. He wrote an article about, I'm done orange pilling people. And it's massive headwinds. It's hard. It's a struggle. And the reality is most people just aren't ready. And if you try to force it on them, you're you're just not going to be successful. You're going to push them away. You're going to make them even more angry about Bitcoin, their Bitcoin derangement syndrome. They may go from agnostic to Bitcoin derangement syndrome. And what we were finding more and more is it was the people who were new in their Bitcoin journey. Like, okay, I get the value proposition of Bitcoin. I'm new to this. I just need some help now. Or, okay, listen, I got the wallet thing down. I watched a YouTube video. I did that, but I'm ready for the next step. I want to do a multi-sig setup. I want to run my own node. I want a little more sovereignty over my life. I want to distribute my seed phrases and get a better security setup. And we just found more and more that we were servicing people that already understood Bitcoin, and trying to force businesses or business owners to understand Bitcoin is it just we were it's like a zero, or a 1 in 1,000 type situation. It's just, and and to be honest, we just felt like we were really um wasting our time there. Like, our time and effort and resources should be focused on providing services that people want, need, and add value as well. And so maybe those business owners one day, after they understand Bitcoin, will come back to us and that sort of thing. But as it stands, orange pilling non-Bitcoin curious business owners is yeah, effectively impossible.
But the inflation thing, it's like it feels, that boiling frog thing where people talk about, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
that, where they've done a beautiful job of essentially siphoning our life force by somehow creating this like mathematical, like they've obfuscated it so nicely, right? Where they know most people don't get math and aren't willing to do the numbers, forget budgeting, like let alone like this kind of secondary level thinking. So it's a good one. But I also wonder, like, do businesses even care, like, just because of, can even get their head around that, like when you come to them and you're like, look, inflation is killing you, they're like, dude, I'm trying to make payments this month here, like I'm not worried about 3 years from now what might happen or whatever.
Well, that is a big problem, and it's funny you say that. I agree. I've long said the central bankers are actually geniuses. They figured out
Yeah,
the ex-
evil
they figured
geniuses.
evil geniuses. They figured
Yeah.
out the exact amount of pain you're going to be willing to tolerate to let them steal from you. Like, they found, same with taxes. It's like, we found the exact equilibrium these people will stomach, and we're going to go there. And it's sick, and it's literally theft, but they are geniuses. But anyways, back to your question. Uh that is a problem, and that is something I was finding in the turnaround space as well, where it was like, hey, we have a problem now. Famously 13-week cash flows. Like, what's our cash flow over the next 13 weeks? How are we going to operate the business? How are we going to make sure vendors are paid? And most of the time we were like, what bills are we not going to pay? How long can we not pay the real estate taxes before interest starts running? How long, what's the landlord's stomach for not accepting rent exactly on time, and stretching payments. And that was a lot of the job. And it's like, yeah, in that situation, you're too far past the point where you can start to benefit from putting Bitcoin on your balance sheet. Like that's kind of a lost cause, but there were a lot of other businesses I was witnessing where it was like, oh, you just have some margin issues, and you can correct these. You've kind of been papering over it with taking on new debt, but like if you streamline your operations, I had a printing guy that I was working with who I basically went in and was like, hey, we got to figure out how to get your margins up. He cut like 4 lines of business that were not contributing enough to his margins. So we cut that out. We sold a bunch of old machinery. We went from 2 locations down to one, rented out the other space. So now we have cash flow coming in from there. And it was like, boom, now we have you with a more efficient operation running an actual business that can be profitable. And it's like, now, now let's talk about getting you into a Bitcoin position. And it really is for the people with the longer view of things that have profitable businesses today, but are watching their margins erode, are watching their top line sales are going up, like the actual dollar amount is going up, but the number of customers is going down, or something like that. And um, businesses that have those kind of problems where it's like this is going to manifest over time, that's where you kind of want to get in. And it's like getting to someone at 70 and being like, hey, let's change your diet, let's get you eating better, let's maybe take you from a pack a day down to half a pack a day, and maybe like 2 drinks at night instead of 8, and that sort of thing. But like at 80, it's kind of like, you're just we're probably lost here. Like there too much damage has been done. So it is not a cure all. Like there's not this is not just some magic bullet you get to pull out and like solve your business problems. You have to be willing, you have to be running a profitable business, and then you have to be like, I want my business to last as long as humanly possible, and I'm going to utilize Bitcoin to make sure that happens.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's very reasonable. So when did I should help companies adopt Bitcoin turn into this is a real professional services category that nobody's serving well?
Um, it was, yeah, probably end of 2024. I'd always wanted to do sort of Bitcoin consulting work. I kind of done it in my personal time, just pro bono, helping my friends, helping my parents, different family members do this kind of stuff. And I just realized that no one's really servicing the business community. And then I found Sovreign, and it was exactly my skill set, what I had been doing, my understanding of businesses, my understanding of Bitcoin, and kind of merging the two, and then helping people. Because I spent years getting my stack in order, watching so many videos, figuring out how to use different hardware devices, going through all the different game theory of seed phrases, where do I store them, all that kind of stuff. And just saying, this is clearly something I struggled with on my own. I know other people are struggling with this as they get into the space. And here's this company that's helping people do that. I think we could make this work for businesses, for individuals, and basically just take my journey and then take it from 100 hours or whatever it was down to 10 hours, and then charge them for it, because there's a value to saving 90 hours of your life. Like I always joke that if I could have gone back, tapped myself on the shoulder in 2018 and said, hey, give me 5 grand and I'll get all your Bitcoin set up, done correctly, avoid the scary exchanges, get your money off of them, and get you in a proper setup, that would have been the best $5,000 I've ever spent. And so I just used my own experience and what I went through and what I would have wanted to get up to speed. And I just thought, hey, we can bring that to market. We can bring this to people for a reasonable price. Like it will cost something. It's our time, our energy, our knowledge. And we also do have like a DIY part on the website as well. So like if you just want to do it on your own, that's fine too. Like you don't, we're not saying like we're offering some sort of proprietary value add information. Like you can go learn all this on your own. We provide the resources to do it. But if you don't want to do that, if you're saying, hey, I don't have the time for this, I want a professional group of people to do this setup for me, I want help doing this and I'm willing to pay for it, that's who we're trying to service. And so we're not trying to, you know, hoodwink anyone or say like you have to use us because we're the only way, or if you don't use us, you're going to lose all your Bitcoin. Like we're not saying that at all. This is a specific customer or business that's made the economic choice to say it is worth my time, my energy, my effort to pay someone to help me with this. And that's who we're out there trying to help. So it was basically just my own lived experience realizing I would have liked that service, and why not bring this option to the market?
Yeah, the Geek Squad for Bitcoin exchanges framing is sticky, right? So when did the repeatable kind of like productized version of consulting click for you over like a bespoke kind of like one-off advisory?
Yeah, so I would say it was probably last fall when we started getting more and more individuals just coming to us, coming from exchanges or coming from interactions I've had with them who were already in the Bitcoin community. And it was like, hey, I'm here. And there's a lot of Bitcoiners too who are kind of embarrassed. They're like, I have all my Bitcoin on a ledger and I have a paper, a passphrase like in a bank vault in a safety deposit box somewhere. And I think there's been unfortunately in the Bitcoin community, there's been a lot of like shaming of people who aren't running their own node, who don't have the best wall up setup, who don't have 4 backups in 4 continents and this kind of stuff. And there's just a lot of people who are like scared to admit that, hey, I just have a really, really basic setup. I wish I had a better one and I don't really know what I'm doing. And we were finding when you got to people like one on one and they got to know you and trust you, they were willing to be more open about that. They're like, hey, yeah, maybe actually I could use these services, or hey, I know someone else who could use these services. And so it was really just getting out there and figuring out what people were asking us for. And it wasn't these big family offices who are like, hey, we want to throw a bunch of money at you, get all my companies set up on Bitcoin and get me set up and do it all, and which is fine. And we would do that, we will do that, and are happy to do that. But we were just taking the market feedback that it was more and more just individuals going, hey, help me out here. And so we said, okay, well, that's clearly who is our customer base. That's who's asking for help. That's who our clients are now. Like that's our book of business now is mostly individuals. And let's just focus our time, energy, and effort on that and make sure we're serving the market that wants our services, as opposed to trying to force people into our services who apparently don't want them.
What's the hardest part about selling trust and education as a product when the asset itself is so volatile and the headlines are always kind of moving against you?
The- by far, the hardest part is convincing people to have a long-term view of things, that level setting with them right off the bat of just, hey, like, let's not talk about this for 5 years. Like, if you're unwilling, I always tell everyone, don't put anything into Bitcoin you're not comfortable with holding for 5 years minimum, and hopefully 10. And so explaining that to people and then watching them kind of go, well, like, what's the point? Like you were talking about earlier, I'm just trying to make my quarterly numbers. I'm just trying to, get by week to week here. I'm just trying to make payroll. And framing it as you really got to be willing to stick this out. And there's some people who are just like, yeah, I'm not. Like, I'll take the 2% inflation and just deal with it. Or, 2% inflation, 8%, 20%, whatever it is. But and just kind of deal with it, and getting them over the hurdle of like, you need to look at this for 10 years, like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. That is a hard hurdle for a lot of people, especially in our, fiat consumer society. Like, absolutely everything in our society is instant gratification. Don't delay your gratification. Have everything you want now. Bread and circuses. Live for today. Live in the moment. The future's not guaranteed. For all we know, the ice caps are going to melt, and there's going to be another global flood. The world's going to constantly end. We're going to have a nuclear holocaust. Don't worry about it. Just like do everything now. And that's seeped into the psyche of the majority of society, and breaking that framework, that view of life is hard. It's embedded in people's outlook and view on life.
So you guys are still early. You're just beginning to grow, right? So what's the one thing you have to essentially get right in the next 12 months for this to become a category leader?
We have to deliver 100% satisfaction. Like, we have to make sure our customers are happy. If we go in to help someone and they walk away unsatisfied, or we didn't get their setup done, we didn't execute. Like, if we don't execute what we're doing, to your point, no one's ever going to trust us. And all the goodwill, all the intentions, all the great ideas we could have will mean nothing if we're not actually delivering what we say we're going to do, which is high touch, white glove, concierge, basically servicing of people. And if we fail to deliver on that, it's all meaningless. So we need that track record of success and satisfied customers, and so far we're there. So far, we even had a customer who basically just tapped out of Bitcoin. He just said, "I'm done. I don't want anything to do with Bitcoin anymore." We refunded him his money, but he had nothing but incredible things to say about us. He's like, "You guys did everything you said you were going to do. You were very uh, great to work with. You were friendly with me. You were and so even people who straight up quit Bitcoin have been happy with our services. So it's just about delivering that every single time, making sure that the customer is completely satisfied. And that's something else that's lost too today. And when you get these call centers, or even AI bots and chats and things like that, and those can solve some problems, but some people just, they're like, I want to talk to a person, I want a human being to solve my problem. And if the person solves the problem, it's a great experience. And we're just here to make sure that you are talking with human beings. We'll solve your problems, and we want you to have an awesome experience and feel like you actually got value out of it, that we treated you well, we treated you with respect, we got the actual technical side of things done that you wanted, and everyone's happy. So we just have to deliver on what we're promising, because if we don't, it's all kind of meaningless.
So as exchanges, treasuries, and institutions all kind of wake up to Bitcoin at once, where does a firm like Sovereign sit in the stack, let's say 5 years out?
Honestly, I don't know. The this company has taken so many twists and turns and different iterations already, and now we're kind of at this point where we're acting almost as, like you said, like the geek squad for these exchanges, where we're kind of technical support for them and for individuals even not coming through exchanges. Um, or even business owners who reach out to us. They're just small business owners who effectively, at the end of the day, are looking for tech support for Bitcoin. And we would love to have the opportunity to do that for bigger companies as well. We would love to come in there and be their sort of IT tech professionals as it relates to Bitcoin, and have the reputation. And it would just be really, really cool to have a company where we're the trusted name, we're the trusted brand, and you have something like I mean, this is obviously dreaming, but you would have someone like an Apple or someone like a Microsoft, like, okay, we finally decided to take the jump into Bitcoin, but we want some professionals. Where should we go? And for us to have a reputation. Now, at the end of the day, realistically, it would just be it would it, I'm hopeful we can get to a point where we've built enough network, we've built enough connections that our network starts referring people to us, companies to us, and we're just there to support businesses, just any size business, middle market, small to medium sized business, big corporations, whatever, but that we just have a trusted reputation where we can get referred into companies and just say, hey, here are your IT for Bitcoin needs. These guys have it taken care of. So sit down with them. They'll come up with a plan for you, and then we just implement it into the business. And I've pitched that to some companies, to some family offices, to some high net worth individuals, and they all like it, and they see the value proposition, but we're just kind of too early for that. So I think to your point, or to your question rather, of where could we fit in as more and more of these institutions and larger organizations and nonprofits and other things like that start to finally adopt Bitcoin. I could see us being one of many firms out there. You look at like how many consulting firms are out there today, doing all sorts, so many. There's such a wide range of consultancy firms, from turnaround to accounting to interim CFOs to operations to future planning, capital planning, all these different things. And it would be cool that if we could just be that for Bitcoin and just be one of those firms that gets plugged into these large organizations when they're finally ready and they need that help. But who knows? We may end up just being completely retail focused. We might just end up just handling consumers and handling thousands of them. So I'm not sure where it ends up, but that would kind of be my vision of how we could end up in doing work for larger companies, if that's where it went.
So help me land the plane here. So if a founder's watching right now and they want to build a real services company in Bitcoin instead of another token or app or whatever, what is the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say don't jump right into it. I would say, let me rephrase that. Sorry. Build your network, build your connections, do a little proof of work in the community, get to know people. And if you are going to just jump in, just start just start building something and have actual proof of work. Don't spend your time trying to get into some job somewhere to find a fit for you, and then later in your career move on. Like, jump in. If you're going to jump in, just start making something, and then as you're making something, put your proof of network into, go to your local meetup, go to meet other Bitcoiners, go to conferences, get your name out there. You can even do it online too, to the extent you're good at that. And I'm terrible at social media, so I suck at that. But if you are good at that sort of thing, just start building your brand, start building your network, and really connect with as many people as you can and build your reputation. Because at the end of the day, the only reason Sovereign as a company has any value is because of the people that are there. And people, we have a reputation in the industry for being people of high integrity, no crypto, not shitcoining, this kind of stuff. And that's only been through years of networking. you know a lot of times people will reach out to someone well known in this space to say, hey, what do you think of this branding guy? What do you think of this company? They're like, oh, I know him. He's a good guy. He's trustworthy. He's hardcore. He is a Bitcoiner. And so having a reputation, building your reputation, doing it right, and not screwing that up is probably the most important thing, because once your reputation gets destroyed, you're done. And the Bitcoin world is littered with people who tried to do something that hurt their reputation, and they just don't ever come back from it, and they're damaged forever. So I would say start building something, doing the proof of work, and start building your network, and don't just try to find some fit right away. Take it slow, start doing something, start building the network, and see where that takes you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. I see we have quite a few people listening as well. Thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, Brandon, I'd love to have you on, like I said, for part 2 and just keep riffing on Bitcoin. Like I said, my favorite topic. We didn't get into it, but it would be interesting to just touch on this AI as well. And, I know agents and all that. It's a bit like you guys are dealing with humans, but in a world that's like running in that direction, I wonder if you think about like what that layer between sovereign and agents might be as well.
100%.
Right?
Think about it every day. Yeah.
So we should shelf that one and keep it as like a curiosity bait for the next one. But thank you all for tuning in. I'm gonna bring this one to an end. Hang back, Brandon, for 1 second.
Thanks, Sonny.